All right, so today I'm going to talk about intuition. A lot of people email me asking to make a video about intuition, and I'm going to share a very practical explanation and way to think about intuition. So, for me, intuition is the voice of reality. It's the voice of my true self, my true nature. When people talk about, channeling their higher self or doing this or that, I think that's really powerful. And I think the only thing, no, I'm not going to say the only thing, but the best thing worth channeling is your own higher self, your own perfected soul, which is the guidance, which is your inner teacher. But instead of using the word channeling, I'm going to say that aspect of you is always present. And it's the part of you that it guides you to be, to behave, think, feel, and move in the world today in a way that would be closer to that perfected soul. Now, perfected soul doesn't mean I'm going to deny my humanity and try to be perfect and try to be spiritual or really try to be anything. It's the voice within that says, okay, I've decided to live from my heart. I've decided to be God, which is feeling like infinite intelligence and being love. Feeling like infinite intelligence because no matter what happens in my life, I know that I'm the conduit of creative energy, so I know that I can flow my energy in a way that will resolve everything in my life. And actually, the problems are already set up to be resolved. The problems are set up for us to become more like our intuitive, our true self. So the intuition is the part of you that knows the truth about things. And it really is applicable like today and maybe tomorrow. It's about today. It's about, should I apologize to my friend who I lashed out at a week ago? Like, is that weighing on me? If I have decided in my life to live from my heart, to be a soul, to be source, that decision guides you to live from your intuition. So on a day-to-day basis, what is that voice telling you? Is it telling you be softer with your parents? Is it telling you create better boundaries for yourself? Is it telling you that you should maybe, even though you don't feel like accepting the invitation to that event, there's a part of you that's saying, go. I know you feel like turning on Netflix and eating popcorn right now, but there's a part of you that's like, this is part of you actually receiving blessings in your life. It's underneath what you kind of feel like doing right now. So in the past, when I've said things like, you should never do what you don't feel like doing, that can be a controversial statement, because what I mean when I say I is that universal feeling of energy, right? It's not necessarily my emotions, whereas some people apparently have emotional authority according to human design. But there's something underneath your emotions, no matter what kind of intuition you have, that it's the flow of life. It's the truth. It's this knowing. It's the knower in you. So when I say I never do what I don't want to do, it's not like, oh, if somebody asked me to take them to the hospital, and I didn't feel like it because I was falling asleep, there would be a deeper part of me that would say, get up, do this. And I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. I'm just giving an example of what intuition feels like. It feels like a knowing. So people go to psychics and have readings, and there's different kinds of intuition. When you truly tap into the truth and the knower and the universal consciousness, yeah, you can have prophetic dreams, yeah, you can have visions. I've had a lot of visions in my life, and I'll tell you right now, and it was quoted in, there was a show called Wednesday about Wednesday Addams, and they said something that was so true, which was, you can't completely trust a vision because it's only a little piece of the bigger picture. Oh my God, that's so true. So you can have prophetic dreams, you can have a knowing of maybe what might happen in the collective, which things in the collective are kind of operate by a different set of rules because there's more of a rule of mass, right? If there's so much momentum and intentions going towards an event, it's more likely that something will happen. But in general, right, we live in the quantum field, and us individually, life, like it, at least in my experience, it doesn't feel predetermined. So if you go to a psychic, or if you try to get information about your future or try to predict, first of all, you're not in a state of trust, which if you were really listening to your intuition, you would relax in the heart into the quantum field, and you'd be like, no matter what happens, it's going to be good. No matter what happens, it's okay. No matter what happens, like, I want to be able to let go without knowing why something happened in the past, or knowing when I'm gonna have this experience. It's the ability to truly relax into the present moment. That's the knower in you. That's the knower in you. But if you tried to predict something, being a version of you that's still in the state of becoming, if I'm worried and tense all the time, and I'm trying to predict my future, well, the information that I'm going to get is going to be limited to my frequency bandwidth. I can't tell you how many times I've done experiments where I'm friends with a lot of psychics. I went to a psychic university, you could say, and people who have had their brain studied because of their remote viewers and all these things. And I've done experiments where I've asked, like, what's the percentage of this happening in my life right now? What would you say? And they're like, oh, 71%. And then I'll do a meditation and change my energy. And without telling them that I did that, I'll ask them again. They're like, oh my God, it's like 99% now. So asking people for information, right? Our life is kind of set up to make us realize that the power is within us. My decision to be happy and live an unlimited life is what's going to determine my life, not what somebody tells me. I've met some of the best psychics in the world, and they've told me things that ended up being completely not my truth, over and over and over and over and over. And I'm like, wow, interesting. Like, nobody knows my truth but me. The knower within me that's so intimately aware of this individual's life. So nobody can tell you who you are or where your life is going. I mean, you can look at astrology and patterns, and sure, and there's some truth in that, but I'm talking about something else. I'm talking about realizing that nobody will ever be able to tell you who you are. And even according to Kabbalistic astrology, the goal of life is to transcend your astrology, not be limited by a pattern or by some preset condition. How do you do that? Well, you live as infinite intelligence on a daily basis. So it's more important that today you showed up in integrity and honesty, and cleared conflict in your life, and had difficult conversations and created boundaries today. Those things are more important than like having some crazy experience where you're talking to some higher dimensional beings who are going to tell you the future about something. You know why? Because if I actually listened to my intuitive knowing voice and I actually used it in a practical way to say, okay, who could I be today? How could I be more more in integrity? How could I be more authentic? How could I be more honest? How could I trust myself more? Sincerely ask, what do I have to do today to be more like God? The answer for you, there's no homogenous universal answer, although there are some universal truths like honesty. And honesty isn't just about not lying, it's about not exaggerating when you speak. It's about not telling stories for entertainment. It's about being sincere about who you are and how you feel. So intuition is the knower within us. It's our internal teacher. And if we become more like that energy today by doing whatever it is that it's guiding us to do, then we have access to more information. But the irony is that you don't really care about anything other than the present moment. You can know all about your past lives and blah, 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 blah. Who cares? Because I'm being love, I'm being truth, I'm being in integrity, I'm being authentic, I'm being me, I'm accepting my humanity, etc., etc., etc. So we get the thing that we desire the most. If you desire more than anything to be like God, which is to be love, to be infinite intelligence, then you will start to feel very viscerally the voice of that teacher. And sometimes the ego doesn't like what that teacher wants us to do because it might involve, breaking off a relationship or a friendship. And the ego that's afraid of conflict is like, I don't want to hurt that person. Well, guess what? You can break off something in a loving, honest way that isn't cruel. Learning how to live in a loving way and not being afraid of what other people think and feel necessarily. And I'm not talking about being a narcissist. I'm talking about living in a win-win consciousness. You're not going to stay in a job that you hate and drain the energy of the business. You're not going to stay in a relationship that you know doesn't feel right for you and drain the potential of the relationship or even of the person that you're with and of yourself. Sometimes what we are guided to do doesn't feel easy to our ego. But really, this is the most practical understanding of intuition. It is, if I want to be like the Creator, which is infinite, unconditional love and intelligence, how can I show up today to be more like that? That's it. So what that might look like, well, if I'm dealing with an illness and I want to heal the illness, that might mean, okay, maybe I need to stop talking about it so much to people for entertainment. Maybe I need to stop presenting myself as a helpless person, because if I'm an infinite creator, my mind and my decision to heal is much more powerful than trying to take safety or attention or false light from my environment. Being more like God can mean, if you're living in a household, right? Have you neglected some responsibilities in your house? How could you be more loving? Could you maybe wipe down the kitchen today? I'm serious. This is what really matters. It's who you are today. It's not what information you could get to try to control reality and predict reality. It's who am I? So while there's all kinds of amazing our potential as multidimensional beings is amazing, but we are here in the 3D to be here and to bring in the consciousness of love and unlimited intelligence into this world. And if you are wanting to explore some of those more esoteric or metaphysical modalities, great. That's part of why you're here. I've done all of that and I love it, but at least right now I've come to this place of like utter practicality of like, while I love spending time in meditation and channeling the angels and those frequencies, we should use the higher resources in the sense of like, if you, it's better to tune into angelic energy in the morning than to get on your cell phone. Duh. But then what are you going to do with that consciousness during your waking day with the people that you came here to interact with? If you channel the angels and Mother Mary and Jesus, and then you walked into your life and you're reacting the same way, you're being the same way, you're closed, you're like a billiard ball being pushed around, right? What's the point? So yes, those things are beautiful and they're supportive and they help you become familiar with the energy that you want to bring into the world. They help you, and it helps you increase desire. Because every time you feel the love of God, right, that's a great thing to tune into in meditation, the love of God. Every time you feel that, your desire for it becomes greater, and everything else that you think you desire becomes really unimportant. So I do recommend meditation, but it's also our everyday life. You don't have to meditate. You just have to decide that's who I want to be, and that inner teacher will start, in a sense, correcting you. That's the intuition that matters. Now, of course, your intuition could tell you all sorts of things about when somebody might pass away, about someone that's going to come into your life soon. Okay, fine. But what matters is like, okay, who am I in relationship to that information? So if I know someone's going to pass away in my family, well, maybe I'll spend more time with them. You know, be more concerned with how am I showing up as love to myself as well, not just to other people. Again, for some people, it's being more like God involves them coming out of a repressed state of energy where they're actually looking, what they are being asked to do is to create stronger boundaries, even to be more selfish. Because being selfless, but in a fractured state of selflessness where you get injured all the time, that's not being like God, that's being a doormat. Something incredible that I learned from an amazing man, David Guillaume, who's been teaching about Kabbalah. He talks about he has a really successful wellness company, and he talks about how all these CEOs have favor banks, right? They do a lot of good, a lot of appearances, and they don't necessarily expect to be paid for it, but they do expect to be to receive blessings from it. So sometimes, if you're the kind of person who maybe does a lot of free therapy for people, or does a lot of I've done a lot of free work for people in the past, and I didn't even think about getting anything in return, but there's something in me that actually doesn't feel worthy of being compensated for the energy I give. So my intuition taught me, and it led me to this talk that I saw with David. He talks about invoicing the creator. You have to decide that you're worthy enough to be compensated for what you share. And that's a big thing. If you don't feel worthy enough, maybe you'll look like this person that does nice things, but like if you're not receiving the blessings, it's because you don't feel worthy. So another way to work with the intuition and improving worth is get into a really relaxed state and ask your soul, your higher self, to help you program your brain with beliefs to expand your ability to receive. I am enough as I am. I am enough as I am. I am primed and perfect to receive the blessings that I'm meant to receive right now. Right now. In whatever language resonates with you, use your intuition, dialogue with your soul, with source. Like, what beliefs, affirmations could I use to expand my feeling of worthiness to receive? That's huge. So I hope this is helpful. You know, there's a lot of cool things about intuition, and you know, you can meet the souls of your future children. I mean, there's so many interesting things about our multidimensional nature, but it really comes down to like, who am I being in my life? Because we came here to interact with the people in our lives, with our families. In some case, we were meant to cut ties with our families. That was the challenge that we had in this life, so that we could become something. I know people who have had to let go of their whole family in order to give birth to something very deep that they would not have been able to give birth to unless they cut those ties. So what we're being asked to do is very personal to us. All you have to do is ask in a sincere way and truly want to know, and you will know. So I hope this is helpful. This is how I see intuition. Yeah, I hope you have a beautiful day.